Hey, it's Mike with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Wednesday. It is September the 9th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And well, this was a very nice trend. This was an easy trend because once you found it, it didn't deviate. It was after 2 o'clock before we ever deviated any. This trend channel held all day long. There's some smaller trend channels within that were fairly easy to find. So if you just found this trend channel and traded the bigger pattern, there was plenty of trades, and there was just about every one of them had a night. Well, I shouldn't say every one of them, but anything that you found that a lot of them had big runners, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So, and again, this was easy day to find compared to yesterday. This is like night and day. This is a strong trend. It just keeps going higher and higher. The channel was in play the whole time. So if you just stuck with the channel, waited on the pullbacks, and then for the trend to start back again, you were good to go. And notice what we do. Prices started, we're down at the bottom, we go to the high. We come back to the bottom, we go to the high. Here we only came back to the midline, we went back to the high. Here we came back, we got a little further over the midline, then went back. And notice we didn't quite get back to the high because prices wanted to come down here. They come back down here and they work all the way back up to the high again, then they work back to the low. And that's what prices do. They go from support to resistance. So if you find this channel, you know once we come off here, we're probably going to here. And when we come off here, we're probably coming to here. Now, if you get enough bounces off this midline and it starts to hold, then by all means trade it. But generally prices are going to go from the trend channel line to the trend line and back and forth in there. And so just be aware of that. And if you can find that channel, then you know what prices are trying to do. They're trying to go back and forth. It's really that simple. Now, how they get there sometimes can be the tricky part. But that's why you draw the shorter term trend lines, to help you know what prices are doing. And I'll say that. I'll say draw these shorter term ones to keep you on the right side of the trade. And people go, what does that mean? Well, what that means is draw this channel and play it until it plays out. Notice it works up, it gets a break, and that's why we probably don't come back to the other side, because then it shoots to a new high, and then it slowly, even then it doesn't come straight back to this side. It kind of goes some oddball way. But if you draw your short-term stuff, and it'll help you know what prices are doing. That's why we draw these lines. And people will send me their charts with no lines on them, or some crazy lines all over it that don't make any sense. And then they wonder why they don't understand what's going on. So this is a skill. And people, and I'll have people coming in and arguing that, my trend lines are subjective. They're not subjective. Even when people get them, people will send me their chart and it'll be slightly different, but it still fits on their chart. It still gets them to the same exact place mine will for the most part. Now, if you come in here and you saw this channel like this, and let's just say you drew it, you drew your trend channel, I'll see people draw one like this. And yeah, that kind of fits, but that doesn't help you at all. And so you got to learn, it should hold prices. Look how neatly that channel holds prices. You don't see prices sticking through on either side a whole lot. Finally, we get an overshoot, but that tells you something. When you get that overshoot, it means that we're probably going to get a break pretty soon. It wasn't long after, on a very strong trend day, that we got a break. That overshoot actually led to a reversal. You could argue we got a little bit of a break there at a new high, but that right there was telling you something was coming. And if prices are not touching your higher line, people will have their line drawn like this, and notice how nothing's touching down here. Yeah, you could be close, but it's not right. You want to get it right where, notice there, all the touches are coming. So that's the idea behind these trend lines and trend channel lines. They're going to tell you where you get instant feedback if you got it right or not. Look how neatly prices fit in there. And even on this one coming up, you can see how it's playing off that midline, everything's, but you get a clue that we're going to probably get a break soon, because notice how we can't get back up there, and then we came even further. We get back to the trend line, we can't get back up there. We get back to it 2 more times, and we can't even get back to the midline. That's telling you it's losing steam. We're going to break soon, and that's what happens. And this is what will happen a lot of times. If you get a strong overnight trend, that's too steep. A good healthy trend is about 45-degree angle, and that'll generally be from corner to corner. And we didn't quite. This is a little flatter, but that's a good strong trend, and it works up all day long. But you'll see that a lot. The overnight's too steep, so then it'll flatten out a little bit. So let's back out. Let's talk about the trades, and let's wrap this up. There's quite a few trades today, and this was a busy day. But this was, again, compared to yesterday, this is like going from college calculus to kindergarten math. That's how much difference it was, and how much easier this day is compared to yesterday. So if you struggled a little bit yesterday, if you struggle today, then you just aren't good at finding the trends yet. Just keep working on it. It'll come to you. This is not easy to do. It's a skill, and you have to hone it. And you do that just I'm going to say this, and I'm going to get on to the trades, but I compare this to being a world-class musician or a world-class athlete. Those guys don't get to be world-class musicians or world-class athletes by just picking up a guitar and reading a few books on how to read music and then start strumming. Those people start when they're young, and they work for years, and they practice daily, and they're basically, that's all they do. They're prodigies. They work on it constantly. That, instead of being out in the yard playing with all the other kids, they're inside practicing, doing their work. And so keep that in mind. That's how you get better at trading. You're not just going to pick up a book or a manual and read it and start opening a chart and trading and be successful. You're going up against professionals that have been doing this for years, that know this market like the back of their hand. And until you get to that level, you're not going to beat them. Remember, this is a zero-sum game. For every dollar you make as a trader, some other trader has to lose that much money. So you're having to beat out the best traders for that money. And you're not going to fool them or beat them often until you're better at this. So just keep that in mind. So anyway, let's get on to the trades. The first trade I saw was right here. I marked this green because we definitely had an uptrend. You can definitely see the channel. You might argue that's not a convincing break outside. You see a little close outside, and it does seem to be fitting well, but it's not a convincing close outside. So anyway, it's risky when you start trying to go short, but look how many times we've turned down across here. We actually started out here, but we got a little bit higher, but we turned down once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. It's like the 5th time. And that's like a little double test there too. And you got plenty of room back to the EMA, so you may take that trade. It's a little risky, but you can see we're working sideways and we're up and down, above and below the EMA. And then we come back to the trend channel line right here. And really this one's probably should be green, because technically this would be your signal bar, and this is kind of an inside bar. But with it being right at the key entry point and making that little double bottom across there, and the fact that really you got this one leg up and you try to go short once, you try to go short twice, it looks like a failed second entry short at the key entry point. There's really a leg down. There's really 2 legs back here too. So there's a lot of little reasons you might take this trade. It's real close to being green. I went ahead and made it blue just simply because it's at the key entry point. But you need to be a really good chart. I probably should just change this to green. I'm just going to change it to green because it is an inside bar. And tomorrow a bunch of you will take one that looks similar to this. You'll say, well, mine failed. What happened to mine? So you got to look at the overall context. And if you've got multiple reasons to enter, then you might enter there. But the main thing is that key entry point that's been holding since 2 o'clock in the morning my time, and here it is 8 o'clock in the morning almost my time. So that's 6 hours. A trend line that holds that long is probably going to keep holding. So if you get a decent reason to enter it, you probably want to enter it. So I'll leave it green though. And then of course there are some reason to be concerned because of all this resistance and all that as well. So we break up, and then as I talked about, you can see we're kind of losing some momentum here. And then we finally get the break here. So just sit tight. There is a higher low with a little room back to the EMA here. But this is just kind of in no man's land. You do see this channel coming down. We got a break and then we overshot it. So that's another one you could probably argue for it to be at least green. If you're wanting to be aggressive, you might take that trade. It's a little risky though. I'd like to see a little more evidence that we're reversing first. Of course, we run up and we just go into this trading range. Don't try to trade that. People will send me, I saw a second entry here or a failed second entry. Well, you're going to see both, and you're just going to get chopped up. This is a trade. This is congestion, which is just a micro trading range. So you got to go to your trading range rules, and you got to forget about second entries and failures and all that stuff. So, of course, you fail and you come out, and you make a lower high, and then we finally bounce. And then we come back to this right here. This is just a higher low, but this is a breakout pullback right here. I like that. It's a little bit congestive, but the reason I like this one is a failed second entry short. Notice that new low. You try to go short once, you correct again, you try to go short twice, and you can see that trending down right there. It looks a little congestive, but there's not 3 or more bars. It's something to be concerned about, but I like that trade, just treating it like a failed second entry short on a breakout pullback, what's been a strong uptrend. And what I did was I drew this line off the highs up here. It's gotten off a little bit. And drug it down like so. But I like that for the failure. The better trade is the higher low here. And this is, remember what this breakout pullback here, because you'll see it over and over multiple times. And so just remember that. It becomes a repeat pattern here before it's over. So this actually confirms this brown trend line, and you would assume we're probably going back to the highs. And off it goes. And you're just getting too far away from the EMA up here. And of course, it hits the upper trend channel, turns down, and we go sideways here before breaking higher. And again, there's a first entry, second entry, and it fails. But it's a little breakout pullback long again. So it looks very similar to this pattern. And we run up, and you get this is a double bottom right here. You can see that little double bottom. First entry, second entry. It's the first break of that little trend channel. So I like going long there, just because it's probably going to trap some people. We run on up to the highs again. You don't want to be entering in the middle. This is just sideways stuff again. We should be working back down to here. But suddenly you get a little channel working down. You get a close outside. You try to go short once, and you try to go short again there. It actually turns down and turns and goes out the other side. I like trading that as another failure. And again, another little breakout pullback. It looks very similar to these other ones. We run up, and then of course we come back. We just came off the high. We didn't quite get back there, but we're probably heading here, and the market's just still really strong. And you got a little channel working down. You get a break outside. You move to a new low, and it bounces right off the trend line. And I just like that one. Again, you probably can look at that as a failed second entry short, but if nothing else, it's a break out of that sideways action. I didn't draw my little lines there. There's a little trading range here. And we failed out the top and then failed out the bottom. But the main thing is it bounces off that key entry point. And I drew that trend line before 9:30 today, and then it comes up here at 10:20 and it bounces right off of it. Pay attention to that. And of course we run up and we start going sideways again. And then there's that little breakout pullback once again. Again, it works. Doesn't get much more than the scat. Of course, there's a lot more room in there than it looks like because this is such a big move today. Then we come back and we get a little higher low right here. It bounces. You draw that trend line. That confirms that trend line. And it looks like it's just a spike in channel here, but it turns out to be two-tiered before it's over. You don't really get a chance to enter here. There is that little breakout pullback again, but the signal bar is no good. Just you got to skip it, unfortunately. This one, just another pullback. We didn't quite get back to the trend line, and it looks like we had an overshoot for a minute here, so you just really can't take that trade. There's two legs back there. If you want to be super aggressive, you might take that entry, but I just think, when you don't follow the rules and you start trying to be more aggressive, guess what's going to happen? You're going to have more losers. And so that one runs up. And now we got an overshoot of the main channel here, it looks like. So I would expect prices to come back here, and you actually get your first break of this brown channel as well. And we actually overshot it a little bit. But there's two legs back there. But again, that's just in the middle of nowhere. And I saw 2 or 3 people sent me a trade today like that. And they're going long just kind of in the middle of nowhere like that. Just because they saw a second entry or a failure or something like that. And then they wonder why it fails on them. After overshooting everything up here, I'm waiting until we come back to here. Because I'm not going to probably take a short in here. If you saw a good trap, you might take a short. There's a second entry short right here. Notice that low, and you try to go short once, and then you turn back higher. And even though it doesn't make a higher low, it's still a correction right there. So you could look at that as a second entry. That's a lower high with still a little room back, and it's confirming that trend channel. So that's one. If you want to be super aggressive, yeah, maybe you say, hey, I'll take that trade. But I'm just telling you, on a strong trend like this, I'm camping out and waiting on things to come back to this trend channel or to the trend line here. And notice they do come back, and I still don't get a setup. You got another little repeat pattern like that last one, but your signal bar is no good. But here's a good example. If you're just patient, you make a new swing low here, and then a first entry, second entry short, it fails. There's your great chance to go long. And you can ride that up until you get a close outside. You went to a new high, and then all of a sudden it's rocketing off here. And notice you actually had a close outside here and a new high. So everything followed out pretty nicely as far as those channels went right there, giving you a clue that. And notice something else here. We spiked up and went into this little channel. Not only did you get a break and a new high, but notice we couldn't even get back to the midline here. And then we turn over, and that just shoots right through. And so that's telling. Of course, this is well after 2 o'clock, but I'm just still showing you what it looks like. It's giving you clues that, hey, we're running out of steam up here maybe. You don't expect it to do this, but that's what happens. And then, of course, you get a measured leg down here. And then there's your second. You measure your first leg down, and then there's your second measured leg down. I mean, almost perfectly. So, pretty good trading day. Like I said, this day was relatively easy compared to what we had yesterday. And the key is find the key entry points, and then just sit and wait for prices to come back. And then not just to come back, but to come back and give you a good setup. So keep that in mind. You had to be a little patient this morning. It took a little bit. I mean, a couple of these I marked aggressive, but they're still maybe not that bad of trades. So, but once it was obvious we had this two-tiered channel, and of course find these short-term ones within here and trade them as well. So be careful about trading the ones coming back down, because you see it's such a strong trend. We don't come straight back down. We make another jog up before we come back down. And then this thing just kept going and going and going and going until it overshot. Then we come back down, bounces right where you would expect it to, the key entry point. Get a little close outside, it works up to a new high and sells off. Perfect price action. So anyway, hope that was helpful to you today. I hope you learned something. I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow and wrap up our week. But I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.